Hello and welcome to Catholic Parents Online, a podcast channel where we share tips and resources on Catholic parenting. Presented through the lens of the theology of the body, we will see how we can be gifts to our children in ways that will help them find true happiness and flourish in accordance with God's wonderful plan for each and every one of them. My name is John Hui and I'm your host for this series. Now, one of the best ways we can be gifts to our children is by living a sacramental marriage, right? A sacramental marriage founded on the love of Christ and His Church. It's supposed to point us to heaven when rightly lived, but as many of us might attest and maybe even experience, it sometimes points us the other way. Yeah. So to share with us today how we can really live out this sacramental marriage to the best that we can with God's grace, we are very blessed today to have with us Alphonsus and Cyrine Gregory, all right, who have served in various ministries in their parish and the archdiocese, including and especially in marriage and family ministry. So, welcome to the podcast, Al and Cyrine.
Thank you.
Okay, right. So, maybe as a start, would you like to introduce yourselves? How long have you been married? How many children you have? Now, how many grandchildren you have? And what ministries have you all been serving in,
Yeah. So, hello everybody, I'm Alphonsus, and this is my beloved wife Cyrine. We have been married for 35 years, since 1988. We have 6 grown-up children, ranging from 26 to 34, of which 3 are married. We have 4 granddaughters, and the 2 older granddaughters are abroad in Brisbane with our oldest daughter. And 2 younger ones are here with us in Singapore. And what is the best news is that we are having 2 more grandsons next year.
Congratulations! Yeah. Now I have to play catch up.
Yeah. So currently we are serving in Worldwide Marriage Encounter Singapore. Cyrine and I are also extraordinary ministers with the Church of St. Vincent de Paul. We are also in the Family Life Ministry of St. Vincent de Paul, and we run programs for parents as well as for the catechists' children, and we do Theology of the Body for L7, 8 and 9. Did I say anything else?
Yes. Currently, we are also started a new program for grandparents.
Wonderful.
We feel that grandparents are also part of the faith formation and the legacy that they need to hand on, the faith legacy that they need to share with the children. Yeah.
And so struggling ourselves.
And struggling ourselves. Yeah, that's right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you both have been quite involved in a number of ministries, so praise God for that. Yeah, so back to marriage. Yes. Have you found marriage to be a rather enriching or a harrowing experience? All right, Cyrine will talk with you after this podcast, I'm sure.
I think marriage has been both enriching and harrowing.
Welcome to the club.
I must admit that marriage is not always a bed of roses, and there is always great happiness when there is intimacy between us. On top of that, world experiences, there could also be very dull moments, boring, plateaued, angry and frustrating, distant moments in married life. Yeah. One of my happiest moments in our marriage was when I conferred the sacrament of holy matrimony on Cyrine and Cyrine on me. Yeah, this was a most special moment for me, as the vows are what has kept us going on all these years. Yeah. What keeps me wanting to continue to be married is that I can live a meaningful life with Cyrine, and as we continue to look out for what is best for each other, affirming each other daily and sharing deeply of our inner selves. Yeah. And what is harrowing would be the trials and tribulations that we go through. I remember I felt a very strong sense of distrust that Cyrine had for me because of what she said, and it made me feel unworthy as a husband and as a father, and I wanted to call it quits then.
Yeah. So you're saying just now that you conferred the sacrament of matrimony on Cyrine and Cyrine on you, right? Now, many people have the idea that it is the priest who confers the sacrament. So perhaps for the benefit of our listeners, would you like to share with us how this? So why did you say that you were the one who conferred the sacrament on her and not the priest?
Okay, I think as far as I have understood the sacrament of holy matrimony, it is the only sacrament where the husband and wife confers on each other the sacrament. It was the form and matter. Would you like to carry on from there?
Okay, so this is something we learned from a priest, right? In marriage encounter. So basically, the form is the vows that we say. We are the matter. Yeah. We are the body, you know, that of which we give ourselves totally to one another. It is not the priest who is involved in this mission in that sense. And we make visible the invisible, which means what is the love that actually flows through us from Christ, through Christ, radiates out to the world. So in that sense, we are called to share that invisible gift and love that God has given us, to radiate it out. We become that signs of Christ's love to the world. Right. So we are the visible signs. If people want to know how Christ really loved, well, if they're single, it's good to get married so they will know what really unconditional love is. But really, if they want to know what is sacrificial love as well, they can see it through our lives as a couple. Right. I think that's how we understand why we confer the sacrament on each other. We are sacrament. Yeah.
Beautiful. So through your sacraments, you're actually radiating the love of God and making people see who God is. All right, the love that is free, total, faithful, and fruitful. Yeah, that's right. So I think besides getting married, singles can also be encouraged to become priests and religious. That's also a lot of call there to really sacrifice, I'm sure, as well. So yeah, okay. So what about yourself, Cyrine? You know, what are the enriching experiences and the harrowing experiences you've had so far?
I guess, John, when you mentioned FTFF, free, total, faithful, and fruitful, I think when it comes to being total, it is not easy. You know, I mean, after years of marriage, I think the challenge between us and the struggle between us sometimes revolves around the fact that, you know, we, after a while, we forget that we are also, we look at it one-sided, like, okay, I'm always giving, you know, I'm not taking. I mean, there are relationships like that where they feel after a while, you know, I'm always giving, you know, and he's just taking. And that happens in sometimes simple everyday occurrences, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think Al also feels the same sometimes, you know, whether I don't put back the toothpaste properly, you know, on the shelf, or I take it for granted, you know, that he's going to do all the housework, you know, that kind of thing.
You do all the housework?
Most of it.
Don't spoil the market, Al.
Oh, well.
I'll ask my wife not to listen to this podcast.
I mean, you know,
but honestly, all of us have to do a part. So I'll be honest. We do have to do our share of the housework as well. Yes.
So I think sometimes like that, you know, I think it's more understanding where we are, you know, whether, you know, if he's busy, then yes, I should step up a bit more, or and vice versa. So sometimes I think that can be quite challenging, trying to balance the sense of, you know, being calculative, you know, in marriage, and also dealing with the different, okay, for Elle and I guess one of the challenges was that because we come from different cultural backgrounds, he being Eurasian, I'm being Indian. So again, we bring in a lot of value systems or values that are very different, practices that are very different. What maybe I would see as lavishness on certain parts, you know, or like, Eurasians, they always have parties and things like that, and then we would like frown on it.
That's
on
the life, right?
On the other hand, right, like for me, okay, maybe I'm quite conservative, too conservative over, the way the kids should be raised to a point of sometimes, rigidity. Yeah, so, things like that because of my own upbringing. Yeah, so not that my upbringing was wrong, but that's the way I was brought up, we don't hug, we don't kiss, or, so it's very different and very awkward, and it becomes a challenge because then it's both sides of the family, right, that, we'll have to meet halfway somewhere. Yeah, so, yeah, I think that cultural differences also did play a part, like in our early years of marriage and sometimes still today, right? Yeah. I think the enriching part of it was maybe the blessing that I received so much was the fact that we were both very involved in church ministry. And in that sense, our own formation as a couple, and now that we are involved even with the Theology of the Body ladies and men's group, I mean, it's very rich for us because, we think we know it already because, in terms of knowledge and in terms of practice, but I think God's love is so much more deeper, and it has, and having that knowledge of TOB alone has enriched actually our own understanding of one another.
Right.
As man, woman, father, mother, and our role in our workplaces as well, right? Yeah. So I think that is something that is very enriching, and I'm so glad that we are on the same page. Yeah, our discussions continue.
Absolutely, yeah. The theology of the body is just so rich, right? In fact, I keep sharing with people that whatever I know right now is just probably less than 1% of the absolute richness that St. John Paul II has shared with us in this beautiful teaching, right? Yeah, so we'll have to continue to soldier on and learn whatever we can, right? Yeah, so just no end to it, yeah. So as you've shared with us some of the so-called harrowing experiences you've had, right? As a couple, what do you think are the really biggest challenges that face couples? Or maybe yourself first, and then in general, what are the biggest challenges that you think face couples?
For me, I think it is communication. Yeah. I'm not talking about communication where we talk about how is work today, or how is school, how are the children doing, and things like that.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
Yeah, that's the easy part. The exchange of knowledge and ideas and information is not what I'm talking about. I'm referring to intimate communication, where I am able to share my inner self, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking at the deepest level. I notice that when we are not in intimate communication, we tend to drift apart. And when we drift apart, that's when the evil one takes hold of us in our own weaknesses, and we get into further issues, and there is a spiraling down in our communication. And I think we need to be very well aware of that fact, that intimate communication is so important, because then I am able to taste what Cyrine is going through. She's able to taste what I'm going through, and that builds that intimacy. And that communication, I think, is the greatest, for me, challenge for couples today. To be able to communicate at a very intimate level.
Yeah, it's not easy for guys, all right?
Yeah,
I mean,
not easy.
Frankly, for us guys, we're just happy talking about football or rugby or basketball or whatever. But when it comes to talking about intimacy, about our heart, sharing our feelings, our vulnerabilities, that's tough. Yeah. That's very tough. So how did you overcome that? I mean, I would like to learn too.
I guess when we are not in that intimate communication, there's a spiraling down. Right. And I think for me, a reflection on what is happening to us in our relationship is important. And that reflection brings me back to my vows. And my vows is what actually brings me to this platform where I'm able then to overcome and say, no, I cannot continue going down this road. I need to be a little bit more open, that Cyrine then can be able to understand what I'm going through, all right? And therefore she can then step into my shoes and feel what I'm feeling, and there seems to be a better intimate communication. Yeah. And that's how I feel I can overcome that. Yeah.
Cyrine, yourself.
I think in today's context, just a few challenges. The first one is to add on to communication, I think the lack of quality time. We tend to perhaps spend a lot of time on raising children. I do know, and the point is there's so much, the child becomes the center of the relationship, that the couple has forgotten that they come first, and that's what they promised in their vows. And so in the end, I find that one party tends to drift away, gets distracted by other things, because to fill that gap, of not having enough time with the spouse, and sometimes it becomes harder if one spouse is always traveling. So I also find that there's not enough, frankly, even like Al, he goes away for scout camps and all that, but I find that it's very different when you do like FaceTime on WhatsApp, or the technology doesn't allow the touch, the feel, and the attractiveness,
the experience of the body, right?
Is gone, So sometimes I think the movie Fatal Attraction is something that, it is true. We need to be attractive and attract each other again, but that can only be done in a very close, intimate physical space, right? Yeah, the body, right? In that sense, that part is so missing, and I think that is a huge challenge, and it just adds on to other things, lah. So when one spouse feels a little not listened to, a little lonely, then there's a tendency to move to gadgets and other interests, which just brings the person away. And I think the danger in today's, social media pages and all that, there is an alternative culture which says it's okay, you can be have an open relationship and be available. I think this is really a slippery slope now, and I fear that a lot. And so sometimes, I think for the couple, it is important to know what's their first priority, what's their commitment, to whom first, what is their calling. So
it's true, isn't it? I mean, even for my wife and myself, over the years, we've acknowledged the fact that if we are not intimate with each other, if we are not close to each other, there's always the temptation to seek such intimacy somewhere else, right? And nowadays, like you mentioned, online, and of course, in another terrible way would be with other people, right? That's so dangerous and so difficult for relationships, right? But it does mean that also that we need to make a big commitment, to really commit ourselves to doing it, because it is not easy to maintain or deepen even that level of intimacy between husband and wife, right? You think it would take a lot of effort. It's not just a matter of feeling. Very often we don't feel like doing something, but we know that, okay, for the sake of ourselves, for the sake of our marriage, for the sake of our children, for the sake of our family, well, we'd better make this work.
It is a tough decision to love and to forgive and to be healed, it is. But I think the effort is worth it. I think marriage for me is a very positive thing. I do hear other stories, but really it is a positive thing, because at the end of the day, I realize that I have grown, to my fullest potential as God would want me to be in this particular vocation, and so has Al. Yeah, we have our daily challenges, but I think the growth is something that is really beautiful, because that's what God made us, right? Beautiful, good, and true, and sometimes we focus so much on the good, the right, the wrong, the right, the wrong, the right, the wrong. We forget that we're actually beautiful with all our imperfections, and we forget. So I think that goal that God has given us, in our call, is something that is very beautiful, and really we see the beauty of Christ in one another in marriage, And that beauty of Christ is sometimes a disfigured face, right? You know what I mean? But yet, you know.
Okay, so you've served in Marriage Encounter, Worldwide Marriage Encounter, for how many years now?
23.
23.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Since
Okay.
we first encountered.
Yeah, and you must have encountered many couples in your ministry as well. And I'm sure you've, in a way, been a mentor to many of them, like it or not, right? And when you are in this ministry, and I'm sure many of them would have come to you with their own challenges. So, in your experience, what do you think are the biggest challenges that couples face in their marriages?
I think one of the many ways in which they actually resolve their conflicts, right? Very often they are on either side of the issue, and they are on opposite ends. And when they are on opposite ends, they don't seem to see what the other is trying to say or try to understand. But if they were on the same side, looking at the issue with the same light and the same values and virtues, they can then deal with the issue and not points of views and opinions that they have about the issue.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's something, a tool which is lacking in quite a number of couples, conflict resolution styles and tools. That is one of the many things that are not equipped, right, by the couples, and therefore they do not know how to solve the issues that they are facing.
Yeah, so conflict resolution is one of the issues you think couples face nowadays,
or
right?
the lack of it.
The lack of that's true. And perhaps sometimes some of the couples will probably say that okay, this time around I'll give in to you, but next time around I might not.
Yeah.
All right. Instead of coming to a common consensus and agreement on a certain decision that they hold together as a couple, they might say, okay, this time around I'll let you be and I'll let you have your way, but next time around it's gonna be my way, right? No matter what. Kind of thing. So that might actually contribute to even more strain in the relationship.
Yeah.
You think so? Yeah. Yeah. Cyrine, what yourself too? What do you think are the other challenges that your couples face nowadays?
Okay, maybe for me, I would want to say it's an attitude. Yeah. So, what is this attitude? That, you know, if it is, so it's almost like coming to a marriage 50-50 rather than 100-100, right? So if it doesn't work out, let's just give up. But what I wanted to share is there's this worry that the attitude is one of almost a level of not wanting to discover each other anymore. It's like, I know it all, no, I've seen it all, I need to stop listening. And so listening is a big challenge. Attentiveness is missing. And partly because of that, okay, there is a breakdown in communication, but I think it leads to this very quick, let's give up. This almost very quickly becoming indifferent.
Right.
And it's worrying because we have come to a point where we have this attitude of, I don't need to discover him anymore. So I remember, even in our relationship, especially after maybe 6-7 years, you're on the grind, right? You're trying to establish career, okay?
Looking after kids.
Money is very important because of my aspirations, his aspirations.
And often lacking in our circumstances.
And what we bring into it, I think, I think that part, and also maybe not being healed from our own families of origin. We don't have that healing and we are bringing that pain in. So these are the little things that are happening in our current society as well, right? The fabric. And what I find is that when they give up very easily on wanting to discover. So I remember there was this book, Fulfilled, and I remember Christopher West in one of his episodes, he talked about creation happening every day. Yes. And I told myself, okay, I look at the plant and I look at the vegetation around me, there's some discovery, new creation happening. How come I don't see it in my spouse anymore? what I see, you understand? I don't see that. So there's nothing new for me to know him. I know he's grumpy or whatever. I know he's going to tell me this. I've heard this before. You know what I mean? And then I become quite like, yeah, correct. Almost like don't want to engage. Yeah.
It seems to me that sometimes it is because we are afraid to love. We are afraid to give because we are afraid to be rejected.
Yes.
Right, to be hurt, right? So I think because of that, sometimes we are afraid to then give ourselves to another person.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we have a very kind of like stereotype vision of our spouse, we might, like you said, sometimes we think, she's going to respond this way, or she's going to say that way, and it's going to just make things worse and things like that. So, and then after we start withdrawing ourselves and then into ourselves, and we don't speak up and we don't share more of ourselves with our spouse because we are afraid to be hurt, and then it spirals downwards, like you said, because the lack of intimacy then gets worse. All right, and it just goes downwards and worse. So it seems that in this particular case, we need to both work at it. One, to continue to work and really pray for the grace to be able to share and to be a gift of ourselves to our spouse in all our being, right? Physical, spiritual, psychological, emotional, and share of ourselves to our spouse, and our spouse to be able to accept that gift that we want to offer of ourselves, receive that gift in a way, and then process it, and then return that gift in the way of understanding, in the way of commitment, a renewed commitment to the marriage. But it's not easy.
No. I think we do need to depend a lot on God's graces. And I think the sacrament, that's the whole idea of sacrament, right? With sacrament comes the grace, that spiritual, divine help to actually help us to be a bit more resilient, more accepting, but at the same time, allowing each other that space to grow patiently. Yes.
If I may add, one more challenge which I think is from the head to the heart.
Right.
I think looking at the number of divorces that we have today, in my reflection, could it be that the couples have not really understood at the head level what the vows actually mean? All right? And living out the vows is then much, much more difficult. If you have not just understood what it means at the head level, to live it out at the heart level, it is going to be very, very difficult. And when a spanner is thrown in, right, and trials come their way, they do not know how to handle it. And because of the fact that I have not instilled in myself possibly an understanding of what the vows really mean. And the vows, as you had mentioned, FTFF, right? Free, total, faithful, and fruitful. Yes, yeah. And I think that is one of the major reasons why possibly there are so many breakups today.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what you have mentioned is so true. That's very often we fail to ask God to come into the picture. Right? We think that we can go on our own strength, with our own steam. It's tough. We won't make it. Right? Which is why as a sacrament, we can count on the fact that God is ever willing to enter into a relationship if we ever just ask Him, Lord, please help me. What am I supposed to do right now? Right? I'm struggling and it's painful. It's hurting. Can you please come? Yeah. It's amazing because, even for myself, I know that, my wife and I married 30 over years, right? We also, even up to today, we continue to have our little misunderstandings, right? And little arguments. And, but one thing over the years I'm really appreciative of is that I asked the Lord to help. I said, Lord, I can't handle this. And can you please come and touch us and heal us and help us to just, solve this problem? And within not too long while, things get better. We get to, in a way, be calmer. And then after that, we try to approach it in a more loving and a more gentle manner to resolve the misunderstanding, right? Yeah. So, yeah, true. And with regards to the young ones, right, do you think there are any other, what do you think they can do even more, right? So we've mentioned about of course, counting on God's grace. We've mentioned about working on our commitment to really try to understand each other, to discover more of each other, the mystery of the other, when rather than to say that, oh, he's always like that, oh, she's always like that, right? The inability to what was the thing we said? The inability to really put ourselves in the shoes of the other, right? So, what else do you think couples can do to try to rediscover the spark, or rather, maybe even make the spark grow more into a fire?
For me, I think being in Marriage Encounter, we have a community of like-minded people with the same values, sacramental values of holy matrimony. And I think there is a rubbing off on each other and an inspiration that we gain from each other. So possibly young couples who are married should also journey with like-minded couples who can actually be a positive effect on them, right? And they can actually be inspired and learn, and they themselves then can be that inspiration to other couples. On their own, chances are that they're going to go back several steps where they were before, and they cannot actually go deeper or progress into their sacramental relationship. Yeah. So being with the ME couples have actually inspired us tremendously, young and old, right? Because of their intimate sharing with us, we then are able to reflect on how we are doing and do something better to improve our relationship. Yeah. So being with like-minded couples are actually very important. Yeah.
That's important, right? So you're very right, because my wife and I also have found that being in a community with other like-minded couples, and as we continue to share with each other and learn from each other and pray with each other, we can also actually grow deeper in our love for God, and therefore in our love for each other as well, right? So I guess Marriage Encounter is definitely one, and I think in Singapore, of course, the others would be Couple Empowerment Program, Couples for Christ, and so on, right? Anything else on your part, Cyrine, you think?
A few things. Praying together as a couple every day is important, because that reminds us again of who we are before God, and who we are to one another, and praying for one another. I think there's always this thing about the praying wife, the praying husband. I sometimes think we pray for everything, but for the one that is just next to us in the bed, sometimes we just forget. Or unless the person is traveling, then we say, okay, let's pray for safety. But I think praying for one another's needs and guarding each other and protecting one another from any temptations, is important. So the couple spirituality, in that sense of living out what we pray together, is also crucial. So it flows from that. I think the other thing I was looking at is it's important for couples to not forget to romance and to have fun. Yes. I'm not sure. It's every time it's serious. So I think our date nights, our fun days, and also, being involved in the kind of things that he enjoys. I think some couples will say, no, I won't enjoy what he does. So off he goes doing his own thing. But how can I, as a wife, learn the dance that he has learned, so that we can dance together? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that is something that, the fun, right? Yeah, like Al would buy me we'll wear always matching t-shirts, he'll go and buy and we'll just wear it together, that kind of thing. And I think it's, and we'd go out and do all the crazy things,
making the effort, right, to really do things together and to enjoy each other's company, right? Yeah.
Helps us loosen, takes off the pressure. Yes. We'll get back to our almost courting days,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't expect my wife to be watching football with me on weekends. I don't expect her to do that. I don't think I want to demand that of her, but I think that it's important to look for things that we can do together in common. For example, my wife and I love nature. So we love to go to places with the sea or with the reservoir or with the mountain. Okay, not mountain in Singapore, but at least a hill or something like that, where we can just enjoy and see the birds. Just listen to them and just enjoy the wildlife and the fauna and flora that God has given us. So it's something that we find that we can do together. Then after that, when it comes to later at night, I'll be watching the football and she'll be doing something else. But we do give each other that space. But yeah, making the effort to really spend that time with each other.
Yeah, and not let the kids or animals tag along.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is why even from young, we've always said this is our paktor time, right? So please, this is our paktor time. No disturbance, please, right? Yeah. So even today, in the past, our children used to get that message quite clear, and now today our grandchildren also get that message. Okay, kong kong popo, they're having their paktor time. Okay, that's great. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the last area, I think for Catholic couples, I feel, is, as I mentioned earlier, they must continue to enrich themselves because it helps them to communicate at a very much different and deeper level. Even if they were going to attend a course, or even if they're going to watch your podcast, for example, together, for instance.
I hope you guys are watching this together. Yeah.
Or even if they are like, if they learn something and they can share. I mean, to that essence, I'm quite grateful, for the TOB formation group, because although we go through the material together, after the sharing, I can ask him about the concepts in the book, and he explains it very clearly. I find that very good. I don't have to share what happened in the ladies group. I can share with him, we talked about this concept, and I guess Al, being very perceptive and quite analytical, he's able to bring it to a level that is richer for us together. Not only at the head, but later on we can know why are we doing what we are doing. It keeps us grounded on the reason why we are married and what our marriage is for. I think that part is very crucial. Even when it comes to parenting, go for parents' enrichment, go together. Sometimes you see only, for us in family ministry, sometimes you always the wife going, the husband doesn't have a part of it. Or sometimes there's only one spouse going, and they will say that, maybe the husband is not Catholic, for instance. But actually, we have seen couples who, despite the faith, they go together and they have an opportunity to talk to each other and resolve issues about their kids and come to an agreement. I think that part is so crucial, for our own continued growth as couples and as parents or even as grandparents. So
it seems that now that we bring up this topic of children, right? Unfortunately, like it or not, many young couples, once the children come into the picture, they tend to focus a lot more on the child or children rather than on their own spouse. And that, I have noticed, can contribute to quite a bit of friction. What do you think?
It is true that if the focus shifts from each other to the child, there is going to be a breakdown in communication, intimate communication. There is a breakdown in the time spent together. Even though she's washing the bottle and I'm washing the nappies, it's all for the kid and not for each other. And that's very, very real. I think for young couples, they need to remember that the child is their gift from God, all right? But they are a gift to the child. And they need to ensure that their relationship continues to grow. If not, then there is a wedge that comes between the husband and the wife, the father and the mother, and the baby becomes the focus and not each other. I think we must remind ourselves that the focus should be on us first, because the only and best gift we can give to our children is the gift of ourselves to each other as husband and wife, as father and mother.
So true, right? So we have to be good lovers first before we become good parents,
Parents, yeah.
right? So true, so true, so true.
Actually, I talked about creation earlier on, right? And I feel like God's creation is when in the children. Because, I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, John. Children also are gifts to us to make us better people. They shape us, Of course, they really shape us, And they really, I think the kids, whether they are innocent or they are active or competent or curious, right? In their own way, they make us continue to grow in love with people, with God, and with nature and with God's creation, other outside, because of the way they perceive things, the way their perspective of things, the way they communicate, and I think they teach us to, like for Elle and I think our own kids have taught us to be parents who can be very humble and ask for their forgiveness when we do wrong. It's not always, we forgiving them, and we've learned humility in our own way through our kids, because kids are kids, right? They are original, they are authentic, they just see through everything, they know when we are original and authentic, isn't
That's
it?
right. Yeah, that's why I say I would say that God is very gracious. He gives us cute little babies before they become teenagers.
Yes, and even then we learn how to work with teens, isn't it? Right? We learn their lingo, their communication style, how they think, and we try to understand. Yeah, they keep us, really, really focused, on things that are important, not things that are just very frivolous.
That's right. That's true. That's true. It's like a passport to heaven.
Right, almost. But I think fruitful is also the fruitfulness of our love can be expressed in how we also touch other couples, I feel, it's not always just the kids, right? It's how we are fruitful in yielding and building the laborers in the
being
harvest,
life-giving to other couples.
Correct, I think children are just as life-giving to us as we are life-giving to them. But I think, to other couples, to other people, I think that is fruitfulness as well. You know what I mean?
Wonderful. Yeah, that is so true. That fruitfulness, yes, in being fruitful and having children and being open to other. There are many people who are struggling to have children even. So, and it's such a painful journey for so many of them. So we understand that fruitfulness is not only in terms of having babies, having children, but also being fruitful in the lives that we lead as a couple and how our love can really enrich others around us as well, right? Yeah, that's such a beautiful point you've brought up, Okay, well, it's been a very interesting discussion, and on marriage and our own brokenness and the challenges that all of us face. Any words of advice before we end off, for our married couples who are listening to this podcast right now? How to make our marriage heavenly rather than hellish?
My advice is actually, as Cyrine had mentioned, is to try your very best to attend one of the marriage programs. If you have not done so, Marriage Encounter Weekend is very good, experiential. A CEP, Couple Empowerment Program, is very, very good. It gives you insights into what marriage is all about according to the Catholic Church. There are also other programs which are online, like Smart Loving, right? The Marriage Kit, the Marriage Course.
That's from Australia.
Yeah, yes. I think if you can actually attend together as a couple these programs, it will definitely help you.
Yeah. Please attend as a couple. This is your marriage. And Cyrine, any last words of advice before we end off?
I always say, don't let the sun set on your anger. Before you go to bed, even if you're in different parts of the world, different time zones, just affirm one another daily, and spend time really listening deeply to each other. You have only one spouse, one life. Really make your marriage a beautiful one. In small way. But of course, if you can go and have fun together, please do so. once a week at least.
Yes. And I understand you're both going on a road trip to Malaysia soon, isn't it? Which you're looking forward to,
Yes.
I'm sure. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Al and Cyrine. It's been a really wonderful chat we had on marriage, the challenges we face, and other couples face as well, especially those whom we minister to. And I'd like to thank you very much for the wonderful insights you've given us and you've shared with us. So we hope that you continue to have a wonderful road trip.
Yes.
Next week, and continue to have a fun together as a couple,
Yes.
and continue to be a blessing to all the people around you, including the people you minister to.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for having us here.
It's been a very great pleasure. So thank you so much, and God bless. So there we have it. Thank you very much for being part of this podcast, and certainly we'd like to thank Al and Cyrine for being part of this chat that we've had today, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime. So till then, God bless you and the family always. Bye-bye.